Ugh! Too cold. Good morning, friends. I just walked into the door and I ran over to check this mold that I made yesterday. I wanted to check it because it was leaking a little bit. I finished it right before I left at the end of the day yesterday, and it was leaking, so I put every clamp I own on it. And I wanted to make sure it hadn't leaked anymore. Looks like it didn't. Looks like it's okay. So what happened here, I was finishing this up at the end of the day, I was tired, made some bad choices. This gray duct tape, I think we bought that for making a duct tape dummy, and it sucks. It did not hold the edges together at all, and liquid started leaking through. Boy, they are getting aggressive out there. The silicone started leaking through, so I just clamped everything and used more of this good tape. Should have used this in the first place. Should have glued it, really. Should have used hot glue, but I was tired, it was late, I was making poor decisions. But hopefully it worked out. Now, as far as what's in this mold, I can't tell you yet. Bit of a secret, and I'm actually not sure when we'll be able to talk about what it is I'm working on here. It's not gonna be a video on it, but it's a thing I'm making for a friend who's making a thing that's really cool. That's all I'm gonna let on right now, but yeah, hopefully the mold turned out.
Hello friends, Bill's mold did turn out just fine, and it worked out great for his project. That's going on a little bit this week. I'm not sure when we're gonna be able to talk about it, but someday we'll show you the rest of that project, at least what we got to do. It's the season to get sick, so I had a cold last week, took a couple days off. This week it looks like Bill has the same cold, so he's out today. Hopefully he's taking it easy at home and resting up, and in a couple days we can get back to work. Because of that, this Friday I'll have a different kind of build update than normal. I don't think it's going to be about the Hellboy gun, but it's going to be something else. We'll see though, we'll see how the rest of this week pans out. And in the meantime, I wanted to share an old project I did with you guys. I don't think I've posted stuff about it online before, and I just thought you would be interested. Before I get to the project, I have to go way back to before our cosplay days. So this is probably, I don't know, around 2008. Before those days, we were getting into podcasts, and they were pretty new at the time. There weren't a lot of them out there, and a lot of people didn't know about them. I think it was when we were coming off of World of Warcraft that we got into the podcast The Instance, and we listened to another podcast that had some of the same people on it called Extra Life. Those podcasting buddies eventually got together and formed their own network called Frog Pants. And after a couple years, their community grew enough to start doing local meetups down in Salt Lake City, Utah. Eventually the meetups grew big enough to fill a whole theater, so they would rent out a theater, do a little kind of prize giveaway, chat beforehand in the theater, and then watch whatever movie came out at the time. It might have been their second year they were in a movie theater that before the convention, they were saying in one of their podcasts how cool it would be if there was a photographer there to take pictures to document the whole event. And Bill, the go-getter, was like, that's something I can actually help with. He's been doing photography for years. So he's like, I have a digital camera. I could go to Salt Lake City, meet these guys, these podcasters I've been listening to for years, and help out. And I tagged along, and we went to our first Nerdtacular convention. It was called Nerdtacular, which is an amazing name. It was great having a goal to take pictures because we didn't really know a lot of the community. We knew the presenters, but we didn't know the community too well. So we got to know the community that year, made some friends, and we came back the next year. This went on for a few years, and the community grew big enough to start having an actual convention that was in a resort up in the hills around Salt Lake City. And it was an awesome place. It was during the summer, so we didn't have a lot of the snow skier traffic. We just had this really cool resort with convention rooms. By then, Bill had gotten more into the community and was doing regular guest segments on one of their newer podcasts called The Morning Stream. I'll link to the Frog Pants group of podcasts down below. They're really good. I don't listen to most of them anymore because I don't have a commute. When I listened to Morning Stream the most is when I had like a 2-hour commute each way for my job. And now that I do a lot of shop work where I have to pay attention and filming and editing, I don't consume that many podcasts anymore. But anyway, the story continues with this convention, and we were getting into cosplay at the time, and we showed up in cosplay, and we were thinking, we want to encourage the rest of this podcasting community to get into cosplay. So the next year at Nerdtacular, we decided to do a little costume contest. And it was fine, it was great. I was just a little uncomfortable for me because it's such a small community. The idea of turning it into a contest seemed kind of weird. Like, we only had, I think, 20 entries, and I just wanted to give a prize for everyone and let them just walk the stage. Really, what they wanted to do was show off the cute little clever costume they made that was either, you know, an in-joke for the podcasting community or some cool Halloween costume that they wanted to make. So the year after that, we turned it into more of a fashion show where people just show up and wear their costume on stage and just have fun and not have to worry about judging or anything. We did want to do something special for everyone that contributed. And since we're getting into molding and casting at the time, Bill would do little badges for people. This is the master of the Nerdtacular 2014 badge. And we would mold these and cast them and give them out to people. They don't do the Nerdtacular convention in Salt Lake City anymore. It's more of a moving convention. They did one in Vegas, and I don't know if they do it every year anymore. But the last year they were in Salt Lake City, I think it was 2017, I decided to do the medallions that year for the fashion show, and I wanted to do something a little different. So this is the master of one of the old medallions. We just happened to keep the 2014 one. I don't know where the other years are. So for my year, we had just come back from New Zealand, and I was really into jade artwork and just the whole world of that kind of sculpting. So I kind of wanted to make something that was a little more abstract and kind of looked like it could be jade. So I came up with this guy. So it's kind of an abstract end that I 3D modeled in Maya, and I kind of tried to give it like more of a fishhook look like some of the artwork they have in New Zealand. I don't have the master for this anymore, but it was a 3D print that I tried to smooth out the best I could to get a pretty glossy surface. The 3D printed master was put under silicone, and this is a dragon skin platinum silicone. At the time, this silicone just came out and we got a trial kit. I think Smooth On gave it to us because they wanted to try it out. So it was super generous that they gave that to us so I could play around with it. At this point in the costume fashion show at Nerdtacular, we were expecting about 50 to 80 people, so I didn't want to just cast individual ones out of this. So I cast 5 copies out of this and got them as cleaned up as I could. And then I made this mold. So I think this is what they would call a gang mold. I just took the 5 resin copies and molded them in more of the dragon skin, and then this way I can cast 5 at once. Or 6 if I want to include this one too. And I gotta say, as much trouble as we would have in our basement shop with platinum silicone having curing issues, I did not have issues with this dragon skin, and it held up really well. Like, this stuff is designed to last. I think I used Smoothcast 326 for these, so they would have a little bit of translucent depth to them, because that silicone is transparent with a little kind of yellowy tint to it. And I wanted to do something more than just a solid green. You can see here there is kind of a two-toned look, and there's even some sparkles in there. I ended up going with pigments. I decided that even though I wanted a little bit of translucentness, that I wanted, you know, a really strong green. So I got a green and a white. So for this two-toned effect, I mixed the lighter color green and then mixed the part A and part B together, and I had plenty of working time with 326. And I didn't pour it all in, I kept some of it in the container, and then I added a little more tint to make it darker, or a little more white to make it lighter, and pour in the rest carefully into this kind of swirly pattern. In fact, I think I used one of these guys, a little pipette, so I took the other color, whether it was darker or lighter, and put it in the pipette, and carefully dripped it into the mold. And then to get it to swirl around a little bit more, I took a toothpick and kind of swirled it. I was kind of trying to go for the effect that some of those D&D dice, the kind of Chessex ones, get with their swirly resin. And then also in the mixture, before I poured it into the mold, I did add some sparkles. This is our container of casting glitter. There is glitter all over the container. No matter what you do, it gets everywhere in here. And these aren't just randomly placed, they're kind of organized into particle size. They don't really get into it on the Smooth On website, but the Cast Magic casting powders are different particle sizes, and some of them are super fine, like these guys, and they go all the way up to these really chunky ones. Look at how big those glitter flakes are. And this Cast Magic stuff is designed to be able to survive casting in resin. Normal glitter might have some problems with the resin, or the resin might have some problems with the glitter, or the glitter might get too hot and dissolve or something, but this stuff is designed to work. And you can get a lot of really cool effects with these different powders, especially when you start combining them with different tints of resin. So I think for my green pigmented ends, I use this pearly green. And you can see how fine that powder is. You can hardly even see the powder. So it's almost like adding more of a shimmer than an actual glitter effect. So I think the process for making these was putting the pearly green powder in the part B with the green tint and a little bit of the white, mixing it with a part A, pouring it into the mold and leaving some of the mixture remaining to make it either darker or lighter to do the little swirly bits. And then after all of these were poured, I put them in the pressure pot, and I think I would leave them overnight. And just every day I would just make, I don't know, 5 or 10 of these until I had enough for the event. And these little necklace pieces I just bought in bulk online. I think they're designed for like children's necks because they're super short. But I figured people could, you know, customize these and put them on whatever they want, whether it was a keychain or they wanted to hang it in their window or whatever. But yeah, I was really happy with the way these turned out. They were really well received, and I got to give them out to the people that entered the costume fashion show, and I kept one for myself. But back to the casting resins, I wanted to show you the difference of particle size between the like pearly green and pearly blues, and I think there's a silver bullet that's the same consistency, and this pig iron. Now from far away, the pig iron looks like it might have really small shimmery sparkles, but they're actually quite big. Oh, I have glitter on my hands. Oh well. So you can see here that the pig iron, you can see the individual sparkles, and then the pearly green, it's almost like it blends more into a powder. And this effect you might want for a lot of things, but you want to be aware of it before you buy it. And online, it's kind of hard to tell, you know, which is which. So from my experience, the pearly series and the silver bullet, which we don't have, so I'm pretty sure the silver bullet is like this, but they're really fine powders. And then like the pig iron and the red devil have the larger sparkles. And then you get into things like these silver ghost and fish scales, and it's just so glittery. This little mold here is great for doing little tests, you know, playing around with different powders and resins to get some neat effects. And Bill was doing just that last week. He took some of the black onyx resin and mixed in some of the powders. So he didn't even dust it in there, just mixed it straight in to see what kind of effects he could get. This is the onyx resin with the pig iron powder mixed into it. And look at how glittery that is. It kind of looks like, to me, what like the automotive finish of a car is, like that size of sparkle, because from far away you can't really see the glitter, but up close you can see the individual bits. And it's amazing that this isn't painted at all. All of that is directly in the resin. You can see it in the back there too. So for my taste, that's already pretty extreme, although it does look really cool. It's just not often that I'm working on something that needs this much sparkliness. If you're working with any particle size that's bigger than that, especially like these guys, you might have trouble with the sparkles getting air trapped around them. So you will want to mix them into the part A or part B beforehand, get them all coated in resin, hopefully get the air out. This isn't something you want to dust your mold with because the resin is going to have trouble getting around the individual sparkles. And now I want to show you my favorite test that Bill did with the pearly blue. So this is a really fine powder that has a blue sheen, and he mixed it in with the black resin and got this. And I just think that looks awesome. It's amazing how like the particles are so small, it's almost giving it kind of a sheen to it. Like if this was a set of D&D dice, this would be the set I would want, that kind of purpley blue shimmery look. The glitter is everywhere. And that's the story of the Nerdtacular necklace. If you've ever seen this in the background in the office, it's usually hanging up somewhere. Now you know what it's from. And you might see one of these out in the wild, although the odds are slim. Only about 80 of them were made. But if you do ever find one, just know that you found someone who listens to a really good podcast community, the Frog Pants community. They are just super cool. And I will link to the Frog Pants podcast network down below. The Morning Stream podcast is the one that Bill is on. He's on Tuesdays for a little segment about making stuff. And he usually talks about whatever he's making at the time, or whatever cool video we just made, or what cool stuff's going on in the maker community. That's the Morning Stream on Tuesdays is when Bill has a segment on there. And he still does it. He's done it for years. Every Tuesday morning at like 9 o'clock our time is when he's on there. Well, that's it for the vlog this week. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for continuing to support us. Thanks to you, we can take the extra time to feel better from being sick and still film stuff in the shop and make extra stuff for you guys to see. And it's just so great that you're interested in seeing this extra content because we love sharing this with you. Anyway, thanks again so much, and I'll see you next week.